after me. Vakyarthascha vicharyatam. Vakyarthascha vicharyatam. Shruti shiraf. Pakshas samashriyatam. Dustarkat suviramyatam. Dustarkat suviramyatam. Shrutimatas. Tarko nusandhiyatam. Brahmasmiti vibhavyatam. Aharahar. Garvah parityajyatam. Deheham matirujyatam. Deheham matirujyatam. Buddhajanair. Vadah parityajyatam. Now for verse 4. Kshutvadhishcha chikitsyatam. Pratidinam. Bhikshaushadham bhujyatam. Swadvannam natu yachyatam. Swadvannam natu yachyatam. Vidhivashat. Vidhivashat. Praptena santushyatam. Praptena santushyatam. Shitoshnadi vishahyatam. Shitoshnadi vishahyatam. Natu vrita. Vakyam samucharyatam. Samucharyatam. Audasinyam abhipsyatam. Audasinyam abhipsyatam. Janakripa. Janakripa. Naishturyam utsrijyatam. Naishturyam utsrijyatam. So now let's go back to verse number 3 and chant 3 and 4 together. Vakyarthascha vicharyatam. Shruti shiraf pakshas samashriyatam. Dustarkat suviramyatam. Shrutimatas tarko nusandhiyatam. Brahmasmiti vibhavyatam. Aharahar garvah parityajyatam. Deheham matirujyatam. Buddhajanair vadah parityajyatam. Kshutvadhishcha chikitsyatam. Pratidinam bhikshaushadham bhujyatam. Swadvannam natu yachyatam. Vidhivashat praptena santushyatam. Shitoshnadi vishahyatam. Natu vrita. Vakyam samucharyatam. Audasinyam abhipsyatam. Janakripa. Naishturyam utsrijyatam. All right. So now we have been seeing the very last stages of nididhyasanam and what it takes to push all the way to samadhi itself. Now this is that difficult transition from 99.9% nididhyasanam into 100%. And Bhagwan Adi Shankaracharya Ji has been giving us all forms of distractions that may come up while being seated in the seat of meditation. So a joke occurred to me earlier this morning that this stereotype we have of Indian parents not being satisfied with 99%, I can say it comes is instilled in our bloods. Even our gurus won't be satisfied. 99% nididhyasanam is still not samadhi. So it's in our blood, you know. So what does this take? We see here that samadhi is the absorption that is required, a sheer dedication to this absorption. And Bhagwan has been there with us this entire time. This is an important element along this path because Bhagwan will give us exactly what we need to improve on a certain obstacle that is causing problems in that moment. So for example, in the beginning, when we are completely unaware of our shastras, have no idea, Bhagwan will send some form or the other to initiate us into learning. I'm talking Vedo Nityam Adiyatam as a brahmachari. How many times, if we looked at those, I've listened to Swamiji's and other brahmacharis that have been in this mission, and they're like, yeah, there was this one time I happened to find a pamphlet. One time Puja Gurudev was talking in some random town. I don't even know why I was there. Some form or the other, there's always some spark. Bhagwan puts that in your path to get you started. Then along with that, when we are trying to purify ourselves through Chitta Shuddhi, through Karma Yoga, what does Bhagwan do? He sends the exact spouse we need and the exact children that we need. In our path, they become the perfect mirrors to help us reflect on our own likes, dislikes, desires, vasanas. It reflects back to us thinking, how do I improve? He gives us exactly the people we need. Then along the way, when we're trying to develop Chitta Ekagrataha and make our bhakti stronger, he will do both. Give us opportunities to develop it further and also present obstacles to help shake that around a little bit, can I distract you? Can I pull you away from bhakti? How will you stand? Can you become stronger in that? So like that, even up until this point, after having done all responsibilities, when we are ready for that seat of meditation, Bhagwan will also remove our duties in life, allow us the opportunity to step away from society. Even that he provides. So it kind of reminded me of Valmiki ji, right? When he's in the seat of meditation and when he was going into samadhi, why did he even get that name, Valmiki? It means he was sitting in the mound of the anthill. So it's almost like that anthill became the crust that protected him and sheltered him away from the world. Like Bhagwan's hug in the form of an anthill. So when it's time, even Bhagwan will allow you to step aside. Now, some people have made the argument, isn't that selfish? How can you be so selfish and step away from society? We have duties, how can you? Yes, 98% of people are still working on that. But if you have graduated, you are allowed to step away. And Bhagwan will tell you when. You can't shout for it. Bhagwan has to give it. It's like Arjuna in chapter 1, right? No, this is adharma. I can't do this. I'm going to run away. I'm going to go into sannyasi. This is what I'm meant for. What did Bhagwan Krishna do? He smacked him twice in chapter 2, held his ear and said, sit down. You have to learn karma yoga. So until we are ready, Bhagwan won't let us go. And then when we are ready, Bhagwan will push us right where we need to be. So this is, when it comes to nididhyasanam into samadhi, we're looking at the most subtle form of introvertedness. We are heading towards the very essence of who we are, therefore we're dropping every form of who we are not. It's a very subtle process. So in that way, there are distractions that come up. Kshud and vyadi, hunger and disease, when they come up, treated as aushadhi in the form of bhiksha. This is what we should do. This is our vehicle. We have to have it so long as we're alive. Let me do what is required to maintain it. Done and dusted. I think that's the new age term for that, done and dusted. So the next line when it says the guidance for this, make sure that you are taking care of it and it doesn't turn into indulging in it. There's a difference. Take care means you do with minimal effort that's required, bare minimum, enough to cover that responsibility. Do it and be done with it. No more lingering. Indulgence, on the other hand, is the essence of lingering. That lingering will cause weaknesses of the mind. It causes wastage of energy. We underestimate the kind of energy we need to soar into that higher realms. What we are experiencing now is hardly 1 to 2% of that kind of energy. So we can't afford to waste it. So do not beware, do not indulge, just take care. This is the main bhava behind any of these obstacles that come up. Then Swadvannam natu yachyatam vidhivashat praptena santushyatam. That don't hanker after delicious food. It's the cravings. Give that one up. Whatever comes, comes. Whatever is written by your vidhi, your prarabdha, accept it. Praptena santushyatam. Again, it's that balanced effortlessness that's there. Then shitoshnadi vishahyatam. When there is differences, from the body level, it is heat and cold. From the mental level, sukha and dukkha. Oh, this feels good, this feels painful. This feels nice, this doesn't feel so nice. That's sukha dukkha in summary. Then mana, avamana, criticism and praise. You bring someone up, you put someone down. This is at the intellectual level. All these variations, just bear through it. Because as we saw last time, I am not the body, mind, and intellect. These dualities, you go through it. I don't need to go through it. You are the one that has to bear through this. I am ever steady. I am always in balance. I am not going to be upset. You cannot drag me back out into this world. You deal with it. Therefore, audasinyam abhipsyatam. Become that udasina, that witness. The sakshi bhava is what's being spoken of. I am watching you go through these experiences. I am not it. I don't need to suffer it. Body, you go through that pain. I don't need to bother with it. So this is this indifference. This indifference is really important because I can maintain that indifference when I keep in mind what my goal is. So if we think about it, all of these other suggestions, like even the next one, jana kripa naishturya mutsrijyatam, this unnecessary lingering of involvement. I've changed that definition. Kripa usually means compassion, as we saw the 5th graders present today. It usually means compassion, but in this context, in this stage of advanced seekerhood, that kripa and naishturya is this lingering involvement in the world outside. All of these things distract me from my main purpose. So to come back, I have that udasinam, that witness is a reminder, why am I here and what is my purpose? I am here to recognize my true state, that is independent. Now we have to go back to mananam, right? There's no other doubts. I am not the mind, I am not the body, I am not the intellect. How can I possibly be it? Why should I be pulled back into that? If I do, know that I've become distracted. How do I come back out of it? Remember why I'm in nididhyasanam. Who am I seeking? So we had seen the two examples of the last pada in verse number 4, which was jana kripa naishtarya mutsrijyatam. Jada Bharata represented the greatest Mahatma in nididhyasanam. Even he fell just for one single attachment to that deer. And as we had that discussion in the last class, that it is the form of attachment which was the root problem. Not that he took, helped the deer out. The act itself wasn't the issue. It was the lingering of the mind on that issue that distracted him from nididhyasanam. In the same way, the opposite also occurs. We saw sarpaha was the command that he asked the rishi. He gave it back to him as a curse. You are so affected by that criticism that you had to become a snake in your next life to exhaust that lingering attachment to criticism. So again, all of these stories may sound weird and like bizarre when you first look at it at the surface level. But when you look deep, there is a root issue of the ego and its egotistical expression that's really being addressed in those stories. So we have to actually accept it for a little bit, sit with it, and try to understand what is it that the rishis were trying to resolve. Shapas in Bhagavatam, shapas in Puranas are never curses as we translate it. They were some lesson in the form of teaching. There is some subtle expression of the ego that has come out, and the rishis are pointing out, hey, pay attention to this. So there's always lessons built into it. So this, now we come to verse number 5, where we are now seeing the definition of what is samadhi. We've gotten good. We've gotten our warning systems. We've gotten our advice that I am here for that samadhi itself. I will not be distracted. Now, what is samadhi? And samadhi, I know there was a question, I think 2 weeks ago, if I remember, somebody was asking about what is meditation. That will get answered in this verse. It might be a previous session or this session. Bear in mind, it's still a good question. They asked, what is meditation? So we're going to be seeing that. Okay. So I'll give a quick comment on it, but we'll see further once we chant this verse. Meditation is an English word. Nididhyasanam is a Sanskritam word. So we can see the crossover of language, it falls short. So Nididhyasanam, we understand in the system of progression. It is constant, effortful engagement in Aham Brahmasmi. Then when it becomes effortless and it becomes my very being, that becomes samadhi. Meditation, now how do we cover that concept? Meditation in today's day and age has taken on different meanings. I sit in silence. Some people call that as meditation. Some people say, I will think of positive thoughts and I will let go of negative thoughts. Some they call that as meditation. Some take up breathing exercises, inhale, hold, and exhale, hold. They call that as meditation. Some are, when they are trying to when they're trying to silence the mind, as you know, they might try higher levels and try to silence, they call that as meditations too. So that is why my initial answer to your question is, let us remove the word meditation altogether. Just don't use it, because it's been mishmashed in its definition. Let's stick to what Shastras and in their vocabulary are identifying the states. That's my initial answer to your question. Let us look into verse 5. Let's look at the details, and maybe I'll circle back around to this question and complete that thought. Yeah? Okay, so now let's look at verse number 5. If you will repeat after me. Let me flip to this too. Ekante sukhamasyatam. Ekante sukhamasyatam. Paratare chetas samadhiyatam. Purnatma susamikshyatam. Purnatma susamikshyatam. Jagadidam. Tatbaditam drishyatam. Prakarma pravilapyatam. Chitibalat napyuttarai shlishyatam. Prarabdham tviha bujyatam. Atapara brahmatmanasthiyatam. One comment before we chant this verse together. In line number 3, where I split it, Chiti balat napyuttarai. So that ta plus na, there's a sandhi, because we're going to be chanting it all together. It changes just a little bit. We now pronounce it as Chiti balan napyuttarai. So you have to hold that na extra bit and then push through. So it's a sandhi that's happening. I broke it just for sake of lead and repeat, but now we'll put it back together when we chant together. Okay? So with that, Ekante sukhamasyatam paratare chetas samadhiyatam. Purnatma susamikshyatam jagadidam. Tadbadhitam drishyatam. Prakarma pravilapyatam. Chitibalanapyuttarai shlishyatam. Prarabdham tviha bujyatam. Atapara brahmatmanasthiyatam. So, the very first instructions in samadhi now is ekante sukhamasyatam. Eka anta, one end. Sukham, happiness. Asyatam, be seated. So at one end, be happily seated. So what do you mean by one end? Like I gotta go find a specific corner, north, south, east, what are you talking about, one end? Meaning the edge of society, edge of responsibilities, edge of this world itself. Find a corner somewhere there. So a little bit deeper, right? With our relationship with the world, it has been given up. Ekante. Sukham asyatam. Be seated happily. Hey, what do you mean? Dukkha, sukha, we said we're giving this up. Why do you bring up sukha again? What do you mean by this? Here, I'm going to borrow the idea that's given in Yoga Patanjali Sutras. When we perform yogasana, asana of preparation of the body, it is allowing the body to have the ability to sit in the seat of meditation without effort for long periods of time. Someone after this morning's class said, when I sit for 20 minutes, the tinglingness starts to come. I have to fidget. How do I sit for longer? So I said, yogasana, that's what it's actually meant for. Now there's a whole industry that has come out of it for physique and good looks and flexibility and, health reasons. We do yoga. Yes, those other benefits are there. I'm not denying that. But what was the original purpose for yogasana? Preparation for the seat of meditation so the body doesn't become a distraction. So this is another side comment here. If I were to ask people outside saying, is yoga a Hindu practice? People get really upset by that question because they don't want yoga to be part of a religion because now they have to adopt everything else. And just recently I walked into Barnes and Noble's just looking for a book or something. And there's a religious section and there's a self-help section. I found Hinduism in the religious section all the way at the bottom in a nice neat corner for 2-3 books. I walk over to self-help, Ayurveda and yoga is in that section. I was like, dude, yoga and Ayurveda is Hindu Shastras. And yet there's this resistance to separate it, saying people will feel politically uncomfortable when they see yoga and Ayurveda as a part of Hindu religion. My comment here is, why be ashamed of it? Let us bring it back. It's part of our system. Because this entire time we were saying, don't become distracted from the final goal. Same thing applies to yoga and Ayurveda. Why are we studying all of that? The final goal is to be able to reach this permanent happiness. Doesn't everybody want this? So this is, again, side commentary here that I'm giving here, but let us take pride in the fact that even yoga and yogasana are part of our Hindu fabric here, because it was meant for this preparation. May this sukha asanam, what does that mean? So now I'm coming back to my original point. The sutra that is given when it comes to asanam, he says that may it be in such a way that there's no effort being put. There's no effort. So let's see. If we were to sit in a seat and you're leaning just slightly, you can't even tell, you're leaning to the right, and for a half an hour, 1 hour you've been sitting like this, what do you feel? A cramp in the backside where you're like, oh, I've been sitting in the wrong way for this hour. I feel pain. So in this way, if you're thinking about samadhi and nididhyasanam for years, you have to sit in this, even a small effort by the muscle can become a distraction down the line. So sukha asana means in perfect balance that is effortless. This is the kind of sukha asanam that we're taking. So this sukha is not sukha dukkha of the mind. Sukha here means, is it balanced or not? Is the seat appropriate in a good manner? That's what that sukha asanam is about, taken from Yoga Patanjali Sutras there. So yoga was meant to help us find this balance so that when we sit, we are not disturbed. Ekante sukham asyatam. And nirapeksha, without any sort of distractions. So this is physical. And by the way, this is follows the same logic as given in our chapter 5 chanting. The last 3 verses that we saw in this chapter, they follow the same sequence. They say, sit in the seat of meditation. Now that I have it right here, same thing is being said. In Puja Gurudev's translation, he says, shutting out all external contacts, fix the gaze as though between the eyebrows, equalizing outgoing and incoming breath through the nostrils. Further description of what is this asana like. So I always get amused when I see, fix your eyes as if between the eyebrows. You mean I have to go cross-eyed in the seat of asana? What do you mean? When we are naturally at rest, like everyone, just close your eyes for a second and don't focus on anything. Just rest the eyes. Where is that eye resting? Does it not feel like in the center of the face? It's right there in between your eyebrows, right in front of your nose. That feels like where my eyes are resting. The point is, I'm not putting effort behind the muscle behind the eye. I've let it come to rest. Where does that naturally occur? Okay, now open your eyes because otherwise you'll fall asleep. So the point here, Sukha Asanam. May every last muscle come into perfect balance that no effort has to be put in. This is Sukha Asanam. Now, after this, what am I supposed to do when I'm sitting in the seat of meditation, reaching Samadhi now? In the same way, by the way, chapter 6 also goes into what is happening with our mind. Same thing is brought up here again. It says, Paratare Chetas Samadhiyatam. Paratare means in that highest. Chetas means the mind. Samadhiyatam. So it has to be in samadhi in that highest. The mind has to be in samadhi with the highest. So Brahma Asmi, in that particular thought, there must be total absorption into it. You allow the mind to slip into Brahman. How? So totally focused on that Brahman that there's no more effort in even the thought level. We're completely absorbed in it. This is called samadhi in aham brahmasmi vritti. It is a thought. Now, one of the examples here, that effort to effortlessness. You can see it from our daily habits. I will say let's compare it to sleep. Now, please understand, sleep and samadhi are not the same thing. They're complete opposites, but we can see some transitions into sleep as an ideal for slipping into samadhi. So if we're going to sleep, what do? First, nightly routine. We got to go around the house, make sure everything's locked, windows are closed, lights are turned off. Then what do? We go to the thermostat. You got to set that perfect temperature, not too hot, not too cold. Have that argument with your spouse so both of you have the agreement of what the temperature should be. Then you come to the seat of sleep, which is your bed. And you arrange your pillow, the firmness of your mattress, the thickness of your comforter. And my favorite part, to regulate temperature, you have to wear the blanket and stick one foot out one side. But the point is, Sukham Asya, right? You find that balanced place. And what's now happening in the mind? Worst thing, every Saturday nights is the worst for me. Tomorrow I have Balvihar, tomorrow I have to teach, tomorrow I have to talk, I have to get up early. When you're stressing about having to get up early, don't we stress out at night? Okay, go to sleep now. You have to get up at 4 a.m. You only have 5.5 hours of sleep if I fall asleep now. What happens half an hour later? Fall asleep now, you'll get 5 hours of sleep. Fall asleep now, you'll get 4.5 hours. You're not sleeping. So it's this effortful distraction that happens in the mind. I have to let go. Let me let go of this day. I will start again tomorrow. So it's this letting go of this waking world that has to become really important. Okay, let it go. Okay, even after having no distractions or disturbances from that, what do we say to ourselves? Sleep. 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 Silence. So the repetition of the thoughts, everyone wake up, please. Please don't fall asleep on me right now. So with the thought of sleep again and again and again, it's with effort. But true sleep happens when there is no more effort put in. I don't think about sleep anymore. So paratare cheta samadhiyatam. The aham brahmasmi vritti was used as practice again and again. Soham, 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 soham. And you slip into that very bhava of being that Brahman. Now, this interesting transition here, samadhiyatam. Let's take a look at that specific Sanskritam word as to what it means. Samadhi is, the root word is dhi, to know. Know that I am that. Sam is usually exaggeration, amplification of that word. Know truly well that you are that Brahman. Now, what is this knowing that we're talking about? There is a difference in worldly knowing versus this highest state of knowing. And what is this difference? This concept of presence and absence of Triputi. Triputi is three. What are these three? There is dhyata who is the meditator. There is dhyeya, the meditated upon, the object of meditation, and dhyanam, the process or verb of meditation. So now do you see why the word meditation isn't quite useful English word here? Dhyata, dhyanam, dhyeya. These three things from a regular standpoint have to be there, otherwise knowing won't happen. I have to be the knower, there has to be an object for me to know, and there should be the connection of mind and senses to know, the knowing. There's three. But in this case, who is the meditator? Brahman. What is the object of meditation? Brahman. So Brahman, and what is this process of meditation? It is being that very thing. Brahman, Brahmaning, Brahman. Weird English. It doesn't make any sense. Because this is that special state where it is neither a noun, neither a verb, nor an adjective. All grammar is lost in that word. All three have dissolved into each other because there is only one thing, that Brahman itself. So the word meditating is quite misleading because you think it's a verb. What do I have to do? It's kind of like sleep. What do I have to do to go to sleep? Nothing. And yet there is effort and there's not effort. So the word meditating is quite misleading. Samadhi is the closest where it says absorption into it and dissolving. Now there's one more concept here where we usually when we say samadhi, we say it's a no mind state. No mind state. Let's go back to the idea of sleeping, right? When I'm actively putting in effort, go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep, the mind is active thinking of that thought. But when I truly go to sleep, what happens to the mind? It doesn't think. Mind is not there anymore. So some people try to define samadhi, that highest state, nirvana, moksha, as a no mind state. Sure, but it's not actually indicating what it is. Where am I getting this from? This is the Bauddha Sampradaya. When they say nirvana, they say you have to eliminate the presence of the mind and you experience nothing. Because if you remove the mind, of course you don't experience anything in the world. They say that is samadhi. And Uttara Mimamsa or Vedanta would say no. Nothingness cannot be that state. Just because you don't have a mind active doesn't mean you've attained samadhi. It means that Vedanta will say you have to have that substratum, that existence principle itself. That is what you are becoming, that you have always been. It can't be nothing. So when they try to define the state of meditation as no mind state, even that is also lacking. It's not complete. So here, this Triputi Bhanga, these differences of the three dissolve. Meditation begins as a process of effort, which we call as Nididhyasanam. But when that meditation becomes the state of being who I am, it is now called as Samadhi. Does that help clarify your answer a little bit more on what is the meaning of meditation there? So that word is misused in two different places, but we have better terminology in Sanskritam to help define what that process is. Nididhyasanam is effort put in to become effortless. Samadhi is a state of being without effort. So it's very, 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 very subtle in its transition, but it takes a very long time. Because not a single distraction can come up in keeping me from being myself. How much would it take to get you out of sleep? Very little. What is it? What's the story of the princess and the pea? She has stacked up 100 beds, and there's a one pea sitting on the bottom of the bed and distracts her from sleep. Like that, how much more sensitive is our state of Nididhyasanam when we are trying to be with our own self, dissolving this world? So it is the hardest step. 99 to 100 is the hardest step. So we'll keep going with this. This idea of samadhi means that this difference between meditator, meditating, and the meditated upon dissolves. There is no difference between the three. This is what it means to be absorbed into it. Now, the next advice here that is given, the next sentence, sorry, I was just checking to make sure I covered all my points. There is a further explanation. What happens when we are able to dissolve into that very state? What happens to this world now? What is my perception of this world now that I've absorbed into it? Next sentence is Purnatma Susamikshatam. Purnatma Susamikshatam. Purna means complete. We talk about the closing prayers, right? Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purna keeps coming up. That particular verse says, if I remove completeness out of completeness, what is left behind? Completeness. If I take completeness and put it into completeness, what's left then? Completeness. Completeness can only be completeness. It cannot be anything other than that. That is our closing prayers, by the way. Purnamada Purnamidam. This sense of completeness is the state that someone experiences when they're in samadhi. If I am existence itself that exists everywhere, then how can I feel incomplete? I am everything. In fact, I am the very principle of, sorry, this is going to sound weird, amming. I am amming itself, meaning A-M-I-N-G. I am the existence itself. How can I feel incomplete? So, Purna Atma, this self is absolutely complete. This I am very well seeing. Samikshatam, the root word is iksha, to see. Then you have su plus sam plus iksha. So, double effort of amplification. Su means sushtu, excellently I see. Then Samyak also means forever. There's no ending of this. So excellently for all time, I definitely see this. I'm just trying to give the bhava behind that feeling of word, because some Vedanta never wastes even a single akshara. So they put two prefixes, then it must mean something. Iksha, to really see. Now, what do we mean by seeing here? We have to come back to Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasanam. What have we removed thus far? Shravana removes absence of knowing who I am, abhavana. Manana removes any doubts of who I am. That is asambhavana. Nididhyasana is viparita, any contrary experiences against who I am. That is what's fixed by Nididhyasanam. Samadhi is the complete eradication of any contrary experience. There is no way I can come back from being who I am once I've entered samadhi. So Purna is this sense of completeness. So we see here, there's a logic. The self is beyond the body, mind, and intellect. Is it, and therefore it is free of all sense of limitation. This is what Purna is talking about. I am free from all sense of limitations. Now, what forms can these limitations take? There are three kinds: Desha, Kala, and Vastu. When we say limitations in space, I am here, but I'm not there. I'm limited in space. I was here now, but I won't be here tomorrow. That is limitation in time. I am this, but I am not that. This is limitation in Vastu. These three limitations do not exist in Brahman. Therefore, it is Purnatvam. It is Sarva Vyapi. Then Ananta and Anadi. It is beginningless and it is endless. No limitation in time. It is Sarva Vyapi, but meaning it pervades all objects. It is both Jada and, Chara and Achara. This is a classic phrase that is used in the different scriptures, saying both inert and sentient, all these things are me alone. So in Vastu, there is no limitations. So like this logic continues. This is how I feel in Samadhi. Then what is my perception of the world around me? Jagadidam tat badidam drishyatam. And I just checked the time. I was just talking about limitation in time. I'm limited in time for the rest of this lecture. We've come to the end. We shall see next time the last bits of this verse in terms of what does this samadhi truly mean and what is my perception of the world. When you say dissolves, what does it mean? And then after that, once we conclude, don't worry, we have other texts coming. I will announce that next class. So with that, Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Thank you for your time.